All right, so we're live. Welcome to the third session in the Plan With Me live series, where today we're going to be focusing on creating a system instead of a resolution. And really, it's not this. It's not just that this session is focused on systems; it's the whole series. And I really was inspired by James Clear to not just create this series, but my product, the playbook. Uh, Initially by this quote, which really intrigued me, and led me to read his book Atomic Habits, which led me to create my product. So you do not rise to the level of your goals, or in our case, resolutions, for the purposes of annual planning. Instead, you fall to the level of your systems, and I love this as a visual. Um, Even though the words themselves are so succinctly and well written. So if we were to take this to the next level in terms of a visual, just imagine yourself coming forward as, the character here. So that's you. And the lines up and down horizontally represent, you know, your potential. And then we love to think that we can ideally reach that achievement of making it to our goal. But what we forget to often realize is that we don't create the systems to catch us when we fall or just to support us in general. And the quote goes on, which is really funny because James Clear then says, this year, really referring to New Year's resolutions, spend more time focusing on the habits that precede the results. And so that is what we have been doing this whole time in terms of this entire series, and particularly what we will be doing in this session for today. So in our first session, we focused on our why in terms of reviewing your last year and your life purpose. Last week, we did your what in terms of defining a dream for yourself for your entire year, and then setting an intention to boil that dream down into a single sentence that you can carry with you. And so today, we will be focusing on your how, your goals and your practices. And so let's start with your goal. But I want to talk about what a goal both isn't as well as what it is, because I think there's a lot of misconception and confusion around this. And, rightly so. It can be this like amorphous kind of thing, right? So first off, a goal is different from a practice, which is what we'll get into in the latter part of today's session. I wrote here, a goal is not continual practice. Instead, it's a peak event. It's that thing that we get to when we get to the mountaintop. Once we get to the mountaintop, we see the view, we enjoy ourselves, and then we move on to the next mountaintop, right? So an example of this is if I, as a YouTuber, were to say, okay, I want to publish 2 videos a month. That's great, but that's not a goal. That's a practice. Instead, if I were to say, I want to launch my first online course, that is something that happens once. And then, like I said, I move on, right? So that instead is a goal. And these two can go together, right? They can support each other. And I want to bring in another example that's perhaps a lot more relatable to more people. And that is something from, fitness. Typically, the classic New Year's resolution is something like, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym more often. And, even better, I'm going to the gym 3 times a week, 5 times a week, every day, even for those that are really ambitious. And this is great. It's honorable and it's good for your fitness. But again, not a goal. It's a practice. Instead, your goal would be something like, I want to get to 15% body fat, or the classic, I want to lose 15 pounds of fat or gain 15 pounds of muscle, what have you. And these can go together, right? Obviously, going to work out 5 times a week will eventually get you to 15% body fat with other variables to take care of, like nutrition, of course. But they work in tandem. But it's important to make the distinction between the two, between what a goal is and what a practice is. And then lastly, the thing that I notice a lot, and I know this seems obvious, but I see it happen all the time, is that goals are often set from this like random place. People, and I've done this too, right? Like setting a goal just because you feel that you're supposed to, or because you feel the societal pressure to do so, rather than a goal that you're really emotionally connected to, right? Like that is inspired by your own genuine dream that comes from within. And I put the spreads from my dreams here. just as a reminder for where we're going to be pulling from when we set our goals today. So this is the spread for the monthly goal from the playbook. And if you have a playbook, what you're going to do today is basically cross out any reference to month. Instead, we're going to put in year. And I'm highlighting this prompt right here because it's super important. Pick something measurable from your dream and convert it into a goal. And, mine this year is going to be something around launching my online course for the playbook. This is measurable, right? Like if I launch it and you see it and it's available, I will have achieved my goal. If it's not available by the end of 2024, I will have failed at my goal, right? So usually it's a binary, like can you measure the achievement of this particular goal, as opposed to say, I want to learn cinematography, or I want to get better at video editing or photography or graphic design or whatever. That's that's good, but it's not specific enough, and it's not really measurable. Like how would you measure that? Instead it would be like, oh, I want to complete a certificate at this particular institution in a study of graphic design or what have you. So just as an example. The next part of this is what I call the gut check. So you see two A words here: achievable and ambitious. And I'm going to add a third one, which is annual, of course, because this series is all about planning our 2024. And this is a scale, right? And it goes in both directions. So let's take a first look at the ambitious end of the scale. So I want to say that it's okay to go big because this is a year-long goal. And in fact, there have been studies done that show that people who set loftier goals are more likely to achieve them. But speaking of achievability, it has to be, you have to strike a balance here. So it has to be somewhat achievable. So the achievability ratio that we're going for here, ideally the golden zone, because we're going more ambitious, it's okay to go, a little less achievable. And that's only because this should kind of scare you, right? Like if you're thinking like, I think I can do this, but I'm not quite sure, but I think I can. I hope I can. Then you've hit the sweet spot. Okay, if it scares you to the point where it just overwhelms you, you feel stressed, you need to get a little bit more realistic. And if you feel like, oh, it's easy, I can do this, then you need to set your sights higher. Okay, so what we're going to do now is the next step here is then to break it down by seasons. So because this is a monthly spread, I have it broken down here in the playbook week by week. So if you have a playbook, you're going to cross these out and just say, the first check-in point is April 1st, followed by July 1st. These are all tied according to the end of each season: winter, spring, summer, and fall. And hold on one second. Sorry here. So, and then lastly, we're going to end with January 1st of 2025, which is kind of crazy, right? So you want to break down what progress looks like at each of these checkpoints. And like I said, at the very end, that very last checkpoint is next year, 2025. And we've barely just stepped into 2024. So let me, enough of the talking here. I just kind of want to show you what this actually looks like for myself. So I have here, I'm going to put this in so you see it a little bit better here. So my goal this year is to launch my online course for the playbook. That's my goal. And then in terms of where I fall for the achievable versus ambitious spectrum, this is pretty ambitious because I have some pretty big desires and dreams for what this online course is going to look and feel like. So I set this at about the 90% mark when it comes to ambitiousness. And then achievable for me is like at the 50% mark. And so I know that I can do this, but I'm not quite sure if I can do this within a year. We'll see. I'm like teetering on the edge here, which again, that's where you want to be too. I want to push you to that area. And then in terms of what progress looks like, I wrote down the dates here. So April 1st all the way to January 1st. By April 1st, I wrote down all scripts for for the each of the lessons should be complete by then, and then I went a little bit in more detail. So just for my own sake, and you can do this too. So by May June, I put pre-production should be complete. By July 1st, around that time, I'm thinking, okay, I want to do that's when I want to do my production week at Yellowstone National Park. So that's where I want to shoot the course and the Tetons as well with my friend Rick. He's gonna be part of that course. So Rick, if you're watching, that's I'm looking forward to doing this with you. So anyway, okay. So then October 1st, I wrote down a range here: October to November. Post production is complete by December. Promotion begins, and then January 1st is the course launched. So that should give you an idea of what a goal spread ideally kind of looks like. There's a part here which we'll get to later. So for now, this is going to be your time to set your goal, and I am going to bring in these dream spreads just as a reminder for you to bring in a goal that is based and inspired by the dream that you worked on in the previous session. Okay, so this time we've got about 2 minutes. It goes faster than you think. Or I should say, it's setting a goal is it doesn't take as much time as I've noticed just for myself. Okay, so I'm gonna start the music here, fade myself out, and you will have some time to do your thing. All right, so I'm just gonna let the music finish off, and you should have a goal complete by now. So this next part seems kind of counterintuitive, but I came across this research from Andrew Huberman. I'm a solid fan of his podcast, and this is from the episode entitled "The Science of Setting and Achieving Goals." So he came across some research from a lab called Balcetis Lab that found that people who actually visualized failure when setting a goal were nearly twice as likely to achieve them than people who didn't. And this is particularly important for the ongoing progress, right? So he mentions earlier in that podcast as well that visualizing success is important, but really only at the beginning, at the onset of setting a goal. And so we did that last week, and we're going to take some time to actually visualize failure. So This is going to uh, be an exercise that I call foreshadow failure. We're gonna do some. I'm gonna fade myself out here because we're gonna do some breath work, different kind of breath work. So I want you to close your eyes, and this time the breath is going to be a lot quicker and shorter. So it's going to be 3 sets of 3. So in through your nose and then out through your mouth. And you're going to do that 3 times. So, and then followed by another 3, and then followed by another 3. Okay, so follow along with me here. So take a little bit of a breath, or a break, sorry, and then we'll do that again. Break, and then our last one. And at this point, you should feel your heart rate, your temperature kind of going up a little bit. That's the whole point. And I'm going to go ahead and start the music. And let the music take you into a vision of what it would look and feel like for you to not achieve the goal that you just set. Okay, so time's up. I want you to open your eyes, and we are going to. I'm just wanting to go back and show you. Show you what I ended up with. So I put here the thought of going yet another year without having made any. Oops, sorry. There we go. The thought of going yet another year without having made any significant progress on my online course, at the very least, honestly, kind of tortures me, especially after having talked about it publicly. All right, so that's just like a little statement that little kind of like mini journal entry of what I came to after visualizing failure for myself. And I just want to tell a little story about how doing this actually is really quite effective. So in 2021, I went to a conference where I met a bunch of people, other entrepreneurs, and I made 2 friends there, and I talked pretty extensively about the launch of my product, the Playbook. And this is an annual conference, and so I remember anticipating the next conference that was going to be coming in 2022, and I thought to myself, when the closer that date came, the more pressure that came to me in terms of, you know, I don't want to show up at next year's conference, having met and spoken to the people that I did last year, and not be able to say that I launched my product, because that's what I talked about with the people that I met there. Like, oh, I'm working on this planner. I'm gonna be launching it pretty soon. I'm gonna be launching it within the next year. And just the thought of not being able to say that was torturous for me. So that put a lot of pressure for me to actually launch my product, which is right here. before you today on screen. Okay, so that is just a story that I want to share with you, just in terms of the effectiveness of visualizing failure. So let's go ahead and check off the levels of being, the levels of having, and now what we're going to be doing is focusing on the level of doing. So we have our intention, we have our goal, and now we are going to set practices to support both our intention and our goal. And so practices, I just want to kind of go over what the components of a practice are. So there are three parts to it. So the first is the action that you'll take. The second is the time that you'll take to do it, or when you're going to do it, actually. And sometimes it's both. And also where you're going to be located as you're doing the thing that you said that you're going to do. So a real life example of this from my own practices is I will write or edit my scripts right after I wake up every Saturday morning in bed. I did this actually pretty religiously for about a whole autumn season. And so if we break this down, right, the action here is writing or editing the scripts. The time is when I wake up. And so this is interesting, right? Because you can get creative with this. You can say Saturday at 10 a.m. Or you can say, which is I think actually more powerful, chaining it after a habit that's already established. So, everybody wakes up every day pretty much. So that's why I did it this way, because I knew if I chained it after I woke up that I would be much more likely to do it. And part of this, of course, was setting aside my notebook, my scripts notebook, the night before. And then I wanted to make it as easy and convenient as possible, so I said, I'm just going to stay in bed and do this. And it proved to be pretty effective. So what we're going to be doing is setting two practices, ideally, one to support your intention and one to support your goal. And it's super important to set practices, because without practices, there is no progress. This is where the systems part really starts to come into play. So I want to take some time to show you examples of that, right? So rather than just talk about it. So I have my two practices here. This first one is in support of my goal, and then this one is in support of my intention. So just as a reminder, my goal was to launch my online course, and then my intention was to become more socially connected. So I'll bring this up to the camera closer so you can see. So I wrote here, I will work on pre-production for my online course. That will change, of course, once pre-production is done. Then I'll have to revisit this practice. But I put here at Mondays at 6 p.m. So in this case, I put down an actual day of the week and a time. And then this is part of time too. So you can say for an hour, you can skip this. This is really optional, honestly. But I like to add as much detail as possible, because it just adds more groundedness to your commitment. And then where is VUCA, which is the name of my co-working space, or ABP, which is the name of my gym. So it's going to be in either one of those locations. And then my second practice to support my intention is I will attend a new social event or function. And then here I didn't circle any days of the week, because I just put 2 times a month. And then for the time I put evenings/weekends, because that's when most of them are. The duration is about 90 minutes, because that's how long these things usually tend to last. And then the location is in and around Austin. And there are other components that are part of this as well. Like, for example, you can write the day of the week that is in accordance to the actual day of the month. And then if you want to go even further detail, you can write down, I wrote down here the goal and then the tally. So the idea here is, I already wrote down 2 times a month for attending a social function. So the goal, obviously, for the month would be 2 times here. And then if I'm able to check off, have 2 X's here, then I can write down 2 out of 2. And, if I do this once every Monday, there are about 4 Mondays in every month. So this would be a total of 4 for the goal. And if I succeed in that, then I would write 4. If I only do 3 Mondays, then I would write 3. Okay, so that is essentially the practice. And now it's going to be your turn. We're going to have 4 minutes to do this, just a little bit longer, because I recognize for those of you who don't have a playbook, it's going to be a little bit time consuming to recreate this spread. So this is what the spread looks like in detail. You can copy what parts work for you and, discard the parts that don't. And we'll take 4 minutes to do that. All right. So, you should have your practices set, and this is a nice, short and sweet one. Just a half-hour live stream today. like I said, it's once you have your dream set, it's translating that into the actual little components of your practices and your goals, and what have you is actually really straightforward. So, thank you for joining me here today, and I hope that you enjoyed this third session. And join me again for the next session where we'll be focusing on your where, which will be really interesting. That should also be another kind of short and sweet one. And that will wrap up the Plan With Me live series for 2024. I hope that you are enjoying this as much as I am. And thank you, whether you're joining me live or watching the replay. And I will see you next week.